There are three selector types that you'll see used most often when working with CSS. And these are the element selector, which we covered in the previous lesson, the class selector, and the ID selector. There are some other more advanced selector types too, but we won't go into these right now since this is only an introductory course. We've already gone over the element selector, so now let's take a look at class and ID selectors. Classes and IDs provide a means of adding sensible names and groupings to your HTML elements so that you have a logical way to refer back to them later in your CSS. This is best demonstrated by example. Let's say we have some paragraph elements that we'd like to style differently than all other paragraphs, perhaps a side note to some main content. You can add a class attribute to each of these differing paragraphs as you see here, and select them in your style sheet using a period followed by the class name. IDs are used in a similar fashion. The difference is an ID must be unique, meaning it can only be used once for a single element within a single document. To select an element by ID in your CSS, you use the pound sign followed by the name of the ID you wish to select. We'll stick to using element and class selectors in this course, but be aware you may see IDs used from time to time when working on a different codebase. Class and ID names are also known as identifiers. Each identifier must start with a letter, a single hyphen, or a single underscore, followed by any number of letters, numbers, hyphens, or underscores. I would recommend starting your identifiers with a letter and separating multiple words with either hyphens or underscores. Whichever naming convention you choose, just be consistent throughout your project. You and anyone else working on this code down the line will thank you for it. Now let's look at how we can use these three selector types in various ways to accommodate a couple hypothetical use cases. Let's say you want all paragraphs, links, and any element with the note class to have a particular style. Rather than applying the styles one at a time to each selector, you can apply a single declaration to all of them using a comma-separated list. Or perhaps you only want to apply a style to any link that's a direct child of a paragraph. You can accomplish this by separating each selector with a space, as you see here. Or maybe you want to get real specific and only apply a particular style to all paragraph elements that also contain the note class. You would do this by joining the paragraph and class selector together as you see here. Before we start adding styles to our project markup, I'd like to briefly discuss the cascade so you have a better idea as to how and when a style is applied to a particular element. You can think of the cascade like you would the order of operations in mathematics. Some projects may contain hundreds or even thousands of style declarations, and sometimes those styles can conflict with one another. The cascade is essentially how the browser determines which declarations take precedence. This gets slightly more in-depth than we'll discuss here because I don't want to bog you down with too many extraneous details. But as a general rule of thumb, the more specific the selector, the higher its precedence. As demonstrated by this slide, the most specific selector at the top has the highest precedence, so this is the style that would be applied if you had a paragraph containing the note class.